everybody, this is Brett Fulmer, Broker Brett with the Attachment Point News Roundtable. I got my old buddy Pat West here for a little bit of a catch-up. I think it feels like, more of a true roundtable since I know we'll have a few topics to hit. But how are you, sir?
I'm well, man. Appreciate any chance I get to catch up with you, that's for sure. So
yeah.
Looking forward to this.
My goal is to have more of an opinion. I know I tread lightly. I don't really make a lot of noise, just try to keep it upbeat, but I'll try to make statements today and actually have an opinion. So, but yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. So I had an agenda today. We're really growing up on the Attachment Point News Roundtable. The first one off the top of my head and list. Have you ever watched Justin Goodman and Jordan Goodman's Total CSR YouTube channel? It's funny. They're good.
Is it?
Yeah. They do one question at the top, and then Jordan makes Justin drink a cocktail, and Justin's usually Michelob Ultra guy, and give us feedback. So that's always pretty funny. And then one more question on the backside. But they hit meaty topics. They talk about stuff the way an agency owner would. They talk about commissions. It's real talk. So for somebody, working with my buddy Blake and other stuff, it just really lends itself to the agency owner's perspective. And I think for somebody working in an agency, it provides a lot of clarity, but it cracks me up. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so much good stuff out there as far as like the agency development content and, talking about having opinions. I mean, I know sometimes I'm a little harsh about the content that I talk about, but I mean, when it's B2B or agent to agent,
you've done this for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I think people do a good job on the B2B agent facing stuff. I mean, I think where my focus is kind of how does this work for consumers? Yep. So I think there's a lot of people that are out there that are really working hard. And I was actually commenting to Pat Callahan actually the other day that I think right now, I think if you wanted to get into an agency and you wanted to develop an agency, I think you could actually do it with podcasts and YouTube videos. And I'm sure that's true with a lot of other things in the industry, other industries as well. But, that to me is something I think it speaks volumes about the value of content like what you're talking about that's out there. And I think that's, that's helpful. There's helpful things there. If you can say, look, I'm teaching you how to run an agency. And all you have to do is listen on Spotify.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
And I'm breaking news right here. I'm going to finally do the playbook you told me to a long time ago. So I got a splitter. I have my weird little microphone that's like rose gold. I forget why I had this one originally. And then I had black as an option, but I went with the second rose gold microphone for uniformity's sake. But I'm going to start trying to do little 5-minute interviews with people around Orange County, HR professionals for the benefits in, whatever else, to just shed some light on the neighborhood, shed some light on local startups. But I'm going to try to drum up opportunities just by creating awareness and helping people around me. I know that was your idea a while back, so it only took me a year.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, it's like anything too. I mean, the biggest thing that I talked about and, when I was in New York with Coverager, the big point I wanted to drive home was just that don't put pressure on yourself, on a quality level. If it's not who you are and you're not comfortable with that, that's fine. We excuse me. I mean, we can't all act in movies, and leave that to professionals. And I think that as video and media becomes a bigger part of our day to day, certainly go for it, have confidence, but also I always look for the balance in things. And I say that, the flip side to that is if it's not something you're comfortable with, traditional marketing where you hire somebody to create good content, there's a lot of authenticity that can come with that. A lot of the people that I know that, do storytelling, they're really good at bringing a story out of you. They're not really inventing anything that isn't authentic, that doesn't come from you. They're good at bringing it out and then presenting it well. And I think that when you start to look at it that way, I think I've sent you a handful of people that, they tour NCAA facilities. That to me is great content. And I just look on the back end of it and say that, that's where I see value in my abilities and try to provide balance. There's some really cool people out there that can get in front of the camera and the guys at JAG, Jill at Apex.
Yeah. She does a great job, especially on the personal
end guys. Yeah. I mean, I could go on, John, a handful, Joe. You could go on and on. Bradley, Scott, those types of guys they wouldn't admit it, but at least to me, you know, they have a personality. Like I could say, hey, look, like if you weren't in insurance, I could see you being, you know, there's just an appeal to those type of people. So I just say, look, there's a balance there, right? Like not all of us can do that. I'm one of them. And that's been a big topic for me, at least on content. I try not to focus too much on it because it's not really too relevant to me, but.
Well, it cracks me up though too. You're not going to be great when you start. I don't know if I've ever recorded this. I've told people this. I was so nervous, Nick, I mean, on the first time that I put a little bit of like whiskey in my coffee just to amuse myself. You know, I was literally that nervous before recording something that in my mind potentially is going to go out to thousands of people, which through insurance nerds it does. And the thing I've learned is even though these things will be around forever, 40 people are going to watch it. It's going to be on a server. Doesn't matter too much. The relationship we're building here while it's being recorded is actually more important than the content itself, you know, and it's a sneaky way to connect with great people, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. And I mean, I take it seriously. I mean, that's the one thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's just for me, I kind of look at it and say, look, there's kind of FAQs.
Yeah.
And there's kind of things that are more entertainment value. And I tend to believe that the stuff that's more entertaining is just going to get watched more. And so I think that as we see the evolution, I think a lot of agents that have invested in the FAQs, the 365 videos in 365 days, I think there's value to that, and it'll probably make their website a lot better. But I think we're seeing a transition now where the quality of what's coming out, I mean, just what an app can do for you, that you can add music now, you can add so many more visual things to it. You know, again, I'm always going to be that person that just says, hey, if you can try to stay half a step of the game, do that. And to me, I think we've solved the video content part of it on an FAQ, on a maybe even an educational level. Maybe it's kind of cool that we could see insurance do what it does for Little League Baseball, you know, and do that inside of content where it's just a cool tour of a local facility, you know, that an agent takes care of, that type of thing. And maybe I could be totally wrong, you know, again, that's what's fun about it. I get to chat about it and people get to kick it around, and then you see what works, and you know, some won't, some of it won't, some of it will.
Yeah, and it's incredible too that, I mean, only been in discussion for 2 to 3 years, and just so much change has happened, so much perspective, you know, shifted from, you know, fear to embracing, you know, media, content, insurtech, all that other good stuff, which brings me to my next topic. So working with Fineo, that's building out an API-driven marketplace for financial planners, you know, life insurance, critical illness, disability. I just want to touch that. It's interesting to see APIs like cresting right now, you know, with CoverWallet being sold, which 300 million is a lot, but I actually thought that was kind of low and kind of early. I don't know what their financials were like, but I thought they were going to ride that thing longer, you know. But I guess it wasn't fully disclosed. It was 300 to 400 million, which I should not scoff at.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, without knowing the financials of it, I think you and I both agree that's with the interactions that we've had, it's been a positive interaction.
Yeah, I liked it. I've used it. I've bought my own insurance off it. I've sold insurance through the platform. I think it was a great pickup for Aon. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing that's interesting is that, you know, I think in a fast-paced world, like, we don't hold on to topics as long as we should.
Okay.
And, you know, to call it a topic, I think is maybe even a poor choice of words, but API was something we talked about a lot, even maybe a year ago. It was kind of top of mind. Yep. I think a lot of the really, you know, quote unquote smart people that I kind of look up to, we're talking API, and I think the conversation has shifted, but the value part of it, you know,
well, it's just showing
what you
up
see
now.
with Plaid.
Yeah.
What you see with Plaid on more of the fintech side of things. I think you and I have probably gone back and forth about APIs, less on a concept level and more of a, hey, which ones can we find and which ones can we work with, and which ones make sense. More of the less investigative and more which ones make sense and let's do them. So I think that topic, maybe it's an interesting one to think of and to bring up, because I don't think it maybe is getting quite the buzzword
Well, it's here now, which is interesting. So it's less exciting, it's less sexy because we're seeing it in real life. And now the buzzy stuff, and I'm excited to be working with them, but Juniper Labs doing data and machine learning. But that's like the next wave that's coming. But yeah, I think APIs are just barely seeing the effect. I think we've cracked, the surface of what they can do, but from a functional revenue driving standpoint, I think there's a lot of room for that to still run. So I'm still bullish on the effect of APIs.
Yeah, and I think what you're seeing more and more, or what I'm seeing, I keep saying you're seeing. What I see
what we're seeing, yeah. I mean,
yeah. We talk enough. It's probably there's a little bit of eye to eye there, but I mean, really, when I think about what I see, I think that there's so many options out there, and insurance itself isn't getting, I don't think, any easier. It's not more simple, so to speak. I mean, it's getting more complex, actually. I mean, anytime you add a new carrier, anytime you add new messaging, I think that it gets more complex. But what I think that you do see is that, somebody that maybe isn't in that incumbent environment, that maybe doesn't want to function inside of the traditional agency environment, is they're positioning themselves to have a chance. I'm not going to go down the will insure tech take over.
They're just kind of becoming one. It's sort of what I expected all along, especially with like a Aon buying Cover Wallet.
I agree, but what I'm seeing is that you have somebody that pushes back on the traditional concept of agency, says, look, like, not where I'm going to go. Somebody that grew up on the internet, and isn't even like what you and I have experienced, right? I know for a fact that you and I talked about, I mean, you can put together an online broker right now if you want to. I mean, you can put the pieces together, and it's not that, week in and week out grind development that you're seeing, even with, what some of the agents that are documenting their journey right now online is what it's taken for them to put an agency together. They're a different environment, but you're seeing people that maybe aren't your traditional player in the market coming in. And the thing is, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to fill that role than it is to go the traditional route. And, if people can match that with advertising, with marketing, let somebody else take care of the back end. You and I both know that, that's appealing. We both signed up with groups that basically do everything except for the acquisition part. Yeah. And, we're happy to do that. Take care of people, walk them kind of through that complex forest, if you will, and to have a professional on both ends of it, why not, right? Instead of somebody trying to juggle both ends of it. So you're seeing, I think it's just getting not easier to be an agent, but I think it's getting a heck of a lot easier to get into the game.
Yep.
And that's the thing that when I say, hey, wake up or whatever, my catch your attention tweet is, it's that type of stuff where it says, look, like, you had to cut down a lot of trees to kind of build what you put up here. But, guess what? The guys next door, they don't have to clear the trees anymore. That lot's open. That's a reality I always use. Maybe it's not a great analogy, but it's a reality in the tech space, especially.
So I made that tweet joke about, looking for where there's new seats because there's already butts in the current seats. It's hard to move paper. It's hard to take over a policy. It's hard to get somebody to deal with their insurance. But going back to our friend Joe McGowan as an example, her focus on ATVs and motorcycles in a niche, and then doing multiple states and being fairly virtual, I think that's the way to go. I think you find your specialty. I think you do stuff online. I think you spread out more than just the neighborhood. I still love Chambers of Commerce, meet great people there. Blake, my friend Trevor, they've had real good success with BNI. I think those things work. But I think there's an expansive digital opportunity that we're just barely cracking open right now,
So my thinking on this, and Jill's a good example. When I worked at State Farm, they had a saying that, the biggest door in the house was the garage door. So, that's the one you should try to knock on to get in, right? Yeah. Like, if you can do a good job with somebody's auto, and it was price-based, obviously. I mean, if you can get somebody's auto, their house will follow, right? And I think that, conceptually, if you can look at it like that, and you can continue to evolve, the niche market makes a lot of sense. And, as I work with Emerson, and out of Denver, and the number of times that somebody says, wow, you just shaved quite a bit off of this flood policy. Like, can you take a look at the other things? we see that overlap a lot. And I think that niche market actually is maybe just a spin on the traditional way of going about things, right? Like, hey, if somebody's kind of into ATVs and motorcycles, I can do a really good job there. Are they less concerned about what I can do with what they maybe consider a generic item like their house and their auto?
Well, you follow your interests too, and you talk about something that you find intriguing, and even Flood, the way that market's changed is kind of a fun one to be in. My problem is I like insurance. I'm interested in insurtech. So who do I sell insurance to then? I'm stuck. That's why I got to go actually out into the neighborhood and start, meeting other professionals and helping them out, But yeah, you can get caught too, just.
I couldn't think of a better spot though, for you, especially to, even geography wise. I mean, where you're at in LA,
it's ridiculous.
Just south of LA with what's going on there. I think you've positioned yourself, I think, both in something that you're interested in and just you're in a good spot for that. It's recognizing what's available, but it takes time, and I think that's the biggest thing is if you get too much pressure early on, and both of us have been in those sales environments where they're just so hyper-focused on getting you into one specific kind of route, and the investment side of it is so high to open an agency that, you're trying to just make your sales and try to survive. I talked about this with Avi and you a handful of times that, being a part-time insurance agent to me is, maybe makes some sense because I see a lot of people that they never get into the niche that they want to be in because they're so busy focusing on just paying that bill, just making sure that P&C business, which if you go and find it, it's there. I mean, there's enough that you can go and find it. But taking that time, and it's not just time or patience. It's not a mental thing. I mean, it's a financial thing too. And
you have to have that forever runway, like
exactly.
Why not? It's an annuity business, just figure out how to stay in the game. Don't die,
pretty much. I mean, at the end of the day, I've come across so many different models, and I've met so many different people in insurance, and, a handful of things honestly stick. And, one thing that an agent or a broker here in Chicago, he's got 100 guys that work for him. He was on the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing list, that type of guy. And, his game was bringing in new agents and things like that. And his pitch was, look, like if you come here, just do the process year in and year out. If making six figures is your goal, that's kind of a weird target, but a lot of people always, it's an easy one to shoot for when you don't know somebody, right?
Yeah.
And you just say, look, like it might take you 2 years, it might take you 1 year. Chances are it's like 3 years, 4 years. But you say, look, like if the goal is to build up that income, like this is the industry for you, because if you stick with it, you'll get there. And I think that's where, I was thinking about this the other day, like, the worst financial decision that I ever made, in my career in insurance was I got bored with my successful insurance book. Just if you can get addicted to that, building it and making it better, if you can get addicted to that and stick with it and not get bored, it's
luckily
tough.
It's a long game, and you jumped out then, you've learned some different things, and now you're kind of coming back at it a different way. I am a fan of doing what gets your full attention. You kind of owe yourself to be in a state of, zen on whatever you're working on. If you're checked out, what's the fun or point of that? So smooth transition here. Acorns, are they going to take everybody's business? Are they going to sell insurance to the whole world? The news that we're referencing is that Acorns is now selling. I saw Haven Life. I saw Ladder. I want to say Liberty Mutual.
Lemonade.
Lemonade. I have Acorns, it is very interesting to see them there. My comment was, it's sort of like having an insurance guy at a credit union. They're not going to knock everybody out, but it is an interesting little corner to see them on. What were your thoughts when you saw Acorns pop up with that today?
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Obviously, they have the ability to gain attention, and they have a really cool product, right? So got a lot going for them. I'm not so sure they will individually take anybody's business at a massive level.
Yeah.
But really, to be honest, my point, I talked about this earlier, that I think this is big, because I think that model continues to catch on, there's so many fintech solutions out there that, they might only grab a tiny little piece, but if you have 100 500 or 1,000 of those fintech that are just grabbing a little piece each, that's when you start to notice it. So I don't think the individual aspect of it is, or the individual ability to just dominate everybody's really there for Acorns, but the model itself and proving that out, even at a fractional level, the ability to copy something is easy, right? In the tech space, if it works for them, you'll see everybody else, focused in on that. So I think it's an interesting moment. It's still, again, I say this, it's still an internet shopper, right? Like, I don't think that everybody's an internet insurance shopper yet. Like, there's a big difference between using Amazon as opposed to Walmart.
Right.
And then trying to relate that to like what InsurTech looks like and what a typical buyer that has a complex, even a remotely complex, set of policies. To me, you'll just, like I said, you'll slowly just see those little pieces come apart with Acorns. And it was more the model that got me thinking, right? Versus it's a market segment, but the industry,
I think you're right.
huge.
It could just prove the concept. And I think as an agent, a lot of referrals and transactions have always been very, analog, paper-driven phone call relationship. I just think that they're showing like a digital piggybacking that, myself, I want to figure out, where I can plug into.
It's another front door. Biggest door. It's another biggest door in the house. When people are looking at, I mean, Acorns is crazy cool, and it's almost gamifying investments.
They're local. They're cool guys. Yeah. I like them. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, I just think it's another example. Again, you try to target somebody's auto insurance 10 years ago. Now you're like, oh, okay, now I'm dealing with Acorns, who's targeting their spare change that's going into investments that, by the way, they have insurance for. Like, that to me is a logical purchase process. That's a logical consumer path that insurance just doesn't really have.
I love the flip too, that you have your big old kind of tight stuffy, financial planners are going after millionaires, and these guys are like, hey, let's help you round up your change and set yourself up. Let's take care of the, the share economy kind of people. There's so many out there. I know one of your goals and missions was to help people in tougher neighborhoods, with insurance, make sure everyone's getting served fairly. That's a thing that I think InsurTechs can be helpful for, is making those lower hanging fruit easier to process and more valuable. So that way we're getting to everybody. That's Fineo's premise too, just making it simpler for the agent to take care of people. So that way more people get taken care of. That's what this whole thing is built about, I think, ideally. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of finger pointing happens like, oh, this gap's open because this person's doing that. And I'm guilty of that, just as guilty of that as anybody. But I think at the same stretch, when you point out gaps, a lot of times you're talking market segment too. Companies, the top, 8 or whatever insurance companies, I mean, they kind of just spray and pray for business. But once you get into, especially when you get into the mutuals and the indie environment, the indie agent environment, I mean, those people they're good at a handful of things, but they're really, really good at them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's just a lot of segments that are out there. That's my challenge, right? That's the challenge, is figuring out, who's going to get the most attention right now. That seems to be the play. I don't know what the exit strategies are for InsurTech. So, I think at this point, companies like Fineo that you're involved in, they're like, hey, we're gonna do something good. We're gonna have a good product that's out there. Like, we're gonna create things that matter.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's the best you can hope for right now, because at the end of the day, it's a lot more complex. You keep going back to that. It's a lot more complex. So.
Well, and, we have everybody retiring in 3 years. We have a smaller workforce. We're just going to need to do more with less. So I'm excited, and for me, it's always been funny because I don't have anything to defend. I'm not defending a legacy system. I'm not defending a brand. Like, I came into this as an outsider, was somewhat brought into the inside through insurance nerds, but still never really felt like I had a seat at the table. I've applied to probably 70 insurance jobs, and maybe got like a assistant to an assistant role offer, like a bullpen job, so I couldn't even crack the door. So we just made our own, like you said, and kind of start building our own, world and helping other people out, Yeah.
I mean, I know that, right now, one of the topics is like,
it's Insurance Career Month. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone through a lot of the different programs. Like, obviously with what I've done at Hedge Quote, I talked to, about 1,000 agents inside of that process.
Yeah.
You're never going to really find two agencies that are the exact same. But when you talk about insurance career month, that's an interesting one. Like,
yeah, I didn't think
when I talk to, like, I really think where the value lies is kind of not focusing on some of the things that people are talking about right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this is going to be weird and people are saying, but like,
nobody's still watching. You can say anything you want now. We're like,
yeah, right. Like
30 minutes in.
I don't know if that personal branding piece is really the most important part right now.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's like an individual thing in insurance that I don't know.
It's interesting how we're all looking at each other and it's like, wait, I thought this was about business development. How do we use this for that?
Yeah. And I know that, like I said, I think back to that, like the idea that like people are trying to be insurance famous or something like that, it's valid, I'm sure there's people that are out there, but like, I mean, I feel like I've been very active on podcasts, I've been very active on Twitter and LinkedIn. And, to your point, like, I mean, the only people that hit me up about like a agency or anything like that, it's mostly just like, hey, do you want to, start your own agency?
Yeah.
And so that's where I think I've been telling, that's where I go back to what you and I talked about earlier. Like there's a lot of cool ways to build agencies now. But you have to go do it yourself.
Yeah, you really do.
And be a real self-starter.
Yeah.
The industry still wants people to they just want butts to put in chairs still. Like, here, sell insurance. Like, that's
everyone's
still
stuck
kind
in
of
their
reality.
own headaches too. It's really hard to get another insurance agent's time for help because everyone's trying to solve their own problems. We all got 6 things in the back of our mind that we have to clean up and go do. The funniest call offer I ever got, I think this is okay to mention, somebody related to Tokyo Marine reached out if I wanted to set up my own program like a year and a half ago when I started my own agency. And it just was the funniest thing in the world. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I do not need to set up paper for, X, Y, and Z. But I thought that was a funny reach out and contact. So if we come up with something special we want to plan later, we'll circle back and set up our own program.
I mean, my thing in all of it, I know I've probably bounced around way too much there, but I mean, my thing in all of that is just, I feel like I've bounced around the industry a lot. Like I've never had a full reliance on the industry.
Okay.
As far as income, like I've always had other things that I was involved in, and insurance really has always, especially, I mean, honestly, until the last 6 months or so. And then, prior to that, honestly, maybe my time at Northwestern Mutual, otherwise I never worried about my insurance business being profitable in the moment.
It's more like an investment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's where I've, that's the angle I've tried to come at consistently, is to say, look, like you can build into this in a lot of different ways. The part-time agent in a lot of ways started out just saying that, like, make sure you got that extra 15 hours a week somewhere.
Yeah. Just make it a long runway, an endless runway,
Yeah. And so I just, the thing to keep in mind with anything I say, anything anybody else comes across, is just that like everybody's in a different spot in their career. And so anytime you start to see people all saying the same thing, like that's when you have to start to get worried in the insurance space. Personally, that's my
or just anywhere, anytime. I remember
right?
when Bitcoin, when like an office manager was trying to figure out how to buy Bitcoin, who just was clueless on what it was. I should have seen the pop then, as soon as you have agreement across the board.
But that type of stuff. So that's happening right now.
Yeah.
In my mind, that's happening right now. And I think almost the overdevelopment of online content. And then I look and say, like, not that people aren't successful with what they're doing, but I look and say, like, I know agencies that are growing at $1.5 million, $2 million a year, and they don't have any online presence. And all they're doing is connecting with centers of influence and making sure those people are happy, right?
Or super targeted posts to their exact audience that is helpful. That's what Blake does. I mean, he's not doing any of this, but every so often on LinkedIn, there'll be a minute-long video about something specifically that helps HR people,
And so, like I said, my thing is never to say branding's wrong, online content's wrong. Like, my goal is to say, like, just know that if you're coming into the industry, there are people making, hundreds of thousands of dollars that you'll never hear from because they're not online, and they're not building that out, and they don't see the necessity of that. And like I said, that to me is what's fun about doing this, right? Like you said, like people probably turned off when they saw me on here because they're like, oh, he's gonna dog agencies or something. Like somehow I got that reputation, but like, to be honest, like it is this information share back and forth. And so like, I'm never subtweeting anybody. I'm never specifically calling anybody out anytime I'm doing this. I'm just saying, like, there is a general conversation that's happening right now. It's not changing. It's the same people talking about a handful of the same things. And when I come into the conversation, whether it's balance or whatever, I just want to be able to say, they might be right, but there's other people that are doing just fine without these things. So like, it's not saying you're wrong. It's just saying, don't feel the pressure when you log on to say like, oh, Pat West said this about agencies not being relevant, so I'm going to put it into an article, and I'm going to publish an article about it. Like, it's not about that. You know, it's about coming back and saying like, hey, why do you feel that way?
I was going to say, it's a roundtable. Everyone gets to have a
balance. Start interviewing people and stop commentating. And I need to do a better job of that as well. But that to me is where it is all like, where I think it's, again, it's not that the topics are wrong. It's just that there's an imbalance right now. And I have so many friends in so many different environments that are doing it so many different ways. And then I get online and it's like, if you're not building this, if you're not doing this, and if you're not with this vendor, like, you know, later on, and it's like, no.
There's different ways to cut this thing. There's different ways to be successful.
State Farm, what do they have, right? What does State Farm have? 13% market share nationally. Think about that. They all they do, and they only get 13%. Like, it's so big. Like, just know that there's so many different ways. And right now, like, I do genuinely feel like, and what's going to happen? I'm calling this right now, and then I'll shut up.
No, you're good.
We're going to move from the Gary Vee quotes about branding, personal branding, to the Jocko Willink of, you get up, I'm going to do my work. I'm not going to complain about it. And that's what success is going to mean. We're going to see that transition. I firmly believe it, because building personal brands, being online, doing that stuff is way too much fun for it to be wildly productive.
Yeah.
And like, for insurance folks, like, you got to do that stuff. It's all part of a little piece of the puzzle. Don't get me wrong. But like, man, there's a huge opportunity right now with just knowing a handful of really good realtors, knowing a handful of good loan officers, and doing right by them.
I think we had these reps with each other, talked about it, figured it out. And now I think we got to start pointing these skills at the community, at the people we can help. You know, we've talked to each other quite a bit. I think we still will. But I think using these skills and resources for our neighborhood, for our clients, I think that's what we might have to do going forward. But let's do this again, man. I know this is the second time, but we'll have you on again before too long. And I appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah. Hey, if anybody watches this is like, what the heck did he just talk about? Reach out to me, because I'm used to just spitballing with you, man. I always forget people are going to watch.
Couple people made it this far. So we got Hedge Quote, we got Pat West on LinkedIn, Hedge Quote on Twitter as well, right? Any other things people should keep an eye out for? If anybody needs flood insurance, they should also reach out to you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm really low key about that. That's not something I like running. I like my life business that I always ran on the side, like, was always low key about it. But I think we've got some cool stuff. I mean, credit where it's due. You introducing me to Emerson.
This is a great dude.
Dude, professionally, as far as, you know, being able to help a lot of people through Hedge Quote, and, you know, now partnering up with them and kind of moving forward into it. That all started, you know, because of you, because of insurance nerds in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, respect to this platform, respect to you, respect to the platform, and, you know, Nick, Carly, and Tony, I know it, and Curtis.
Right.
Just all the people behind the scenes that make it work. Appreciate those guys.
Absolutely, man. Well, let's wrap it there, and we'll do it again. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you soon.